another Generation 2 Plasticon review! Woohoo! Welcome back to another Plasticon review. Today we're going to cover some more Generation 2. I have a long overdue review here of G2 Megatron. Yeah, you know, the eggplant colored tank? Yeah, this thing. This thing's absolutely awesome. It's got so many crazy gimmicks going on. I love the idea that this thing actually has some sound features, such as when you push it, you can push down on the top of it, just like so. It does a tank rolling sound. It's kind of cool. I do like it. It's funny. This is one of these kind of people that really like corny things like that, so you know, it works. Anyway, going a little more further craziness this thing has, it actually has a really nice gun working feature. This gun has several different little things it does. It does have ability to raise up, not to mention when you cock the gun back to actually fire, it makes a cock sound, and then you click on the little switch in the back and it will fire out a missile. Has a real easy way to be able to put the missiles in when you just flip up the hatch on the gun itself. This is a really awesome feature this toy has. I absolutely love this toy just because of the fact that it has firing missile gimmicks that is really difficult to break, honestly. It's not one that you can actually mess up. Now, just a little bit of a thing for you G.I. Joe fans out there. Yes, this thing is absolutely featured in the Snake Eyes comic books, and not to mention the gun itself was actually used in a stealth tank that G.I. Joe had. It's kind of interesting how they decided to just take that same mold and just slap it on a G.I. Joe tank, and there you go. But let's go ahead and get into Megatron here, because Megatron is awesome, and I absolutely love G2 Megatron. To me, this is Megatron. I have always loved him in tank mode. It's got a lot of awesome camo. I just love this camo. Not to mention the size of this thing. It's something I actually like too. I just love this lime green. This lime green is just off the chain. I love it. It screams 90s. That's what 90s is all about, right? Not to mention these crazy decals. He's got a lot of decals all over him with this really, it's almost an eye-searing orangish red. It's very difficult to tell exactly what color this is, because if you look at it, it almost looks kind of pinkish as well. So it's one of those colors that just like borderlines three different hues of the color spectrum. I just love that about it. This thing is just absolutely massive. It's a very heavy toy, especially when you put the batteries in. The batteries go on the underside here. You do have to have a screwdriver in order to take the battery compartment on and off, which is something I like, because the fact is it's very difficult to lose this battery cover if you have it screwed in, and you're not going to lose it. If you're one of those out there that actually has one of these, then yeah. And yes, I do know in Beast Wars 2 they decided to reuse this same mold for a different version of Megatron in that, and the color scheme is different. The purple's much darker. It's not as fluorescent colored as this. This thing here, if you put this next to Generation 2 Brawl, you literally can see that the colors are almost identical. It's crazy how that looks. But Brawl's absolutely nice. This little bitty guy, just about that big. He's teeny tiny, about the size of a little larger than a Hot Wheel. But, this thing is absolutely massive. I love the idea that this thing was actually featured in some G.I. Joe, and it's nice to see a toy actually get a lot of recognition in fiction. That's something I absolutely loved about G2. G2 had those weird things that happen like that, and this is one of them. This is the cream of the crop. But let's go ahead and turn this thing into what should be Megatron, shall we? Megatron in his robot mode. And what a robot mode this thing is. This thing is absolutely enormous. I absolutely think this is the coolest Megatron that has ever been released. I do like this thing a whole lot, mainly because the color scheme is as 90s as it gets, and I do like that about him. I do like the fact that a lot of silver just kind of pops out once you put him in robot mode, which is really neat considering there really isn't a very big hint of any silver at all when he is in vehicle mode, so I do like the idea a lot of this is tucked away. He does happen to have a lot of detail throughout the entire robot in this mode, and it actually doesn't take away from it at all, considering, yeah, you can straight up tell he turns from a tank into a robot, and I do like this. This is a very, very neat thing. He does have very, very limited posability, but he does look really cool. Considering Optimus was released in his G1 mold back then, this toy is just massive compared to him. It's just entirely, seems like scale-wise, just so unfair. But the head sculpt's got a very, very nice Megatron head sculpt. I do like the little bit of hue of purple he has, although, you know, this thing actually has a very, very interesting color picked out for the eyes as well. The eyes match the stickers, and it's really interesting how they're able to paint match that. I do like the fact that he does happen to retain that whole G1 head sculpt almost like the old bucket head always had, but I still like the fact that he does look very interesting. He does happen to have a couple other gimmicks though when he's actually in this robot mode. He does have this little thing here that you press, and this little spring-loaded gimmick here pops his head up, which is kind of nice. But if you press on his head, he says Megatron attack, which is hilarious. I love that. It's just, I know a lot of those people out there watched Energon and stuff like that, you know, they remember a little bit of the stuff in RID where they call out what attacks they're doing and stuff. I think this might have really sparked that kind of thing, but I do like this about this toy. I like it actually has a voice clip, which is kind of nice because, you know, Optimus Prime said, oh, well, I'm Optimus Prime. Well, he just says Megatron attack, so it's kind of appropriate. It does happen to have another gimmick, which is actually here in his arm. It's up here. And that won't ever shut off unless you actually put his arm down. Love the pew pew sound it makes. It's awesome. He does happen to have a smaller little gun that I do not have. The only real accessories he comes with are the missiles. He does come with a gun, and he does come with this little, it's a searchlight, and it's also kind of like a searching gimmick type of like device that goes with him that can actually be put on here in several different ways. You can actually put it underneath his head. It's a 5mm port, so it can actually plug in a whole lot of other things if you wanted to, which is kind of nice. I mean, you can even put this thing in his hand here and just use it if you don't happen to have a gun like me. So, you know, you can put it in there. And then you can use this as maybe a sonar array or whatever. I do like that about him. He doesn't have the noise over here, which, you know, the electronics are over on the one side. The gun shooting gimmick does still work in this mode. And this thing actually fires pretty good. That's one thing I do like about it. And it does have the raising and lowering feature here, which is kind of nice. It only goes up that high, which is fine. I mean, to be honest, he's more than likely going to be on the battlefield back shooting artillery rounds until he gets charged, and then, you know, he'll just turn into a robot and just run over whoever. But, you know, that's one thing I liked about this Megatron. This Megatron's very neat, and he is, to me, one of the coolest. He does happen to have one more little thing he does, other than this really cool, other than the really interesting stickers here he's got on the side. He does happen to have a storage down here. You can store one missile here, and you can store one missile here, which is kind of nice. So that way you're not going to lose every missile he has. So if you didn't want to overload this gun up top, which you have ability to put up to 3 missiles on the inside of it, you can put the other missile down here if you just didn't want to overload it, and then close them up, and they won't fall out either. They're actually in a very, very nice stored area. This is something I do like because it's a lot like Laser Prime. Laser Prime tend to have that whole storage gimmick, and that's something I did like about him. And obviously you can tell size comparison wise next to G2 Prime, he dwarfs him. I mean, he's a very, very, very large robot. He's like double the size. This guy here, honestly, if you had him on the shelf, Devastator would be pretty much to the same height. If any of you guys out there happen to own like a G1 or G2 Devastator, that kind of gives you a little more scale comparison if you never owned a G1 Prime. But anyhow, this has been Plasticon. This has been another Transformer Awesome G2 overdue review, because, you know, this thing should have come out a long time ago for you guys. I'll see you guys around because I have plenty more coming right at you. See you around. Bye.